have been having really absurd dreams, and I always have been a crazy dreamer, but these dreams are nuts. I dreamt last night that Corliss and I lived in ancient times. I was a queen and he was the king, and it was very, very tragic, but he was killed in battle. My husband died in my dream last night. There was this high chancellor who came to visit me, and I was weeping so epically. And he came into the bedroom and he had all of his subjects with him. He said, "Your Majesty, it is time that we appoint a new king, and because you have no heir, we will be forced to find someone else among the subjects." And I'm assuming he was referring to himself. He didn't know that I had the king's child inside me. And I was crying, my head was in my hands, and I looked up and I was like, "Little do you know, little man, the king's son is in my belly, and when he is born, he will rule. And his son will rule, and his son will rule, and their name will be great. So back off, Jack." I had a dream that the baby was a boy, and we named him Gilbert, like Gilbert Blythe in Anne of Green Gables. I have this plan that I'd really like to name the baby a name that is passed down from one of our ancestors, mine or your daddy's. I don't know if Gilbert is in either one of our ancestries. I had a dream that I was in Italy and I was on a bicycle, and I stopped at this beautiful theater, and I went inside because I knew the man who owned it. He was an old gentleman and his name was Sam, and he was a clown. He was a clown. And I went in there and I was like, "Sam." In the dressing rooms, I could hear some noise, and I pulled back one of the curtains, and he was like this 90-year-old man, and he was putting on women's pantyhose, and he had red rouge on his cheeks because he was a clown. And I said, "Oh, Sam." And I was trying to get him to go to the grocery store with me. What? I had a dream. I was in a bus, and Corliss and Sean works at the farm. They were in the front seat. Sean was driving. There were a bunch of dairy farms everywhere. There were cows everywhere, and there were lions. There were wild, very vicious, huge African lions, and they were killing the cows. We had to get to a shelter, which doesn't make any sense because we would be much safer on a bus if we were running from lions than we would be in a shelter. I was extremely pregnant. Inside the shelter, there was a Maurice's, the women's clothing store. Don't know why. Corliss was like, "This will make you feel better. We'll take you to Maurice's. We'll buy you some jeans." This gal was helping us. There were not any fitting rooms. There was just this giant room where all these people were because it was a shelter. And you can hear the lions roaring in the background. It sounds like the, MGM kind of roaring. She brought me like 20 pair of jeans, but they were all size 0 or 2. All 0s and 2s. Your daddy was so excited to bring me all these pants to try on. And I said, "Honey, I have not wore a 0 or a 2 since high school." And he's like, "Just try them on." And I was trying to put on these pants and they weren't fitting. And this chick, the salesperson from Maurice's, was supposed to be helpful, but she wasn't. She came up to me and she said, "Where did you get married?" And I said, "At the top of a lighthouse." And then she snickered. She thought that was stupid and she made fun of it. Then she said, "So what kind of ring do you have?" And I showed her my ring. She was like, "Did you get that out of a Cracker Jack box?" Which people don't even say that stuff anymore. It's like such an old-fashioned thing to say because the prizes in Cracker Jack boxes aren't even prizes anymore. She just was saying one offensive thing after the other. And she goes, "What does your husband do for a living?" And I said, "Oh, he's a dairy farmer." And she goes, "Oh, it's a really tough time for those dairy farmers with all the lions." It's a really tough time to be a dairy farmer with all the lions. I said, "Well, he makes the most of it. He does really well." And she's looking at your daddy, at Corliss, and she's like, "What farm do you work at?" And he said, "Oh, I work at Gulembo Farms." And she snickered again. And she goes, "Well, I certainly hope that Mr. Gulembo has good job security there for you, with all the lions and all the attacks that have been happening." She just kept saying, "I hope Mr. Gulembo takes good care of his employees. I hope Mr. Gulembo is good to you." And he got so sick of it, and I got so sick of it. He pushed her up against the wall, and he goes, "I am Mr. Gulembo, you corn McNugget." And I was like, yeah, you corn McNugget. He called her a corn McNugget. He called her a corn McNugget. And the thing is, I had just taken the kids to Ponderosa and they had these corn nuggets. They would look like little chicken nuggets, only they were made of corn.